You're listening to the Fitzrock Podcast, interviews where we explore the shifts and transitions of life. Here are your hosts, Keith Rock and Don Fitzsimmons. Hi, everybody. Today we are really excited to have Marian Mcspadden with us. Marian is a trainer and life coach, and she's going to talk with us about not everything we try works. Marian, thanks for being with us today.
Yes, Don, thank you. I'm excited to connect with your audience and love to meet them as well.
Hey, we're very excited to have you. And it was, we've had a little bit of time to talk, but I love the topic today. Why don't you start us out with what about this topic and give us some ideas about it?
If you've ever had a new child, you may have read all the books and listened to what mama said, and you did everything right, but the baby still didn't sleep all night. Or you may have planted a garden and you put all the seeds out, but not every seed came up. You know, it's sort of the law of nature where it doesn't always work out. And I think the bigger the dream, the bigger the risk is of the disappointment. So if we take little risks and little growths, we'll experience smaller disappointments. But when we believe for something bigger, we may experience a more profound disappointment as we go. And then how can we overcome those and learn how to navigate forward? And I love the analogy of sails. Sailors, and you cannot manage the wind, but you can take that wind and make it work for you. And that's what sailors know how to do. And I think it's such a great example and has been used for years with quotes and things, how to navigate seas and get to your destination.
The reason we have so many different books is because there are lots of different approaches and they don't all work. And that's why we have other ideas.
No, not everything you try works. Like, wow, that's good. So tell us about that.
Well, I wrote a book, Pretty Much Everything You Try Doesn't Work. And to give a little backstory, I was born and raised in a very conservative horse and buggy Dutch home. My first language was Pennsylvania Dutch. I spoke that till I went to school in first grade, and then the classes were in English, so we learned to speak the English language and read and write it. And from in that culture, it was my normal. I never expected I would do anything other than being a part of the community and my family and my grandparents, aunts and uncles, you know, for generations and generations. And I came to a place in life where it became a crossroad. And it is so interesting that Heart Connection Ministry in 2001 was the sort of the big pinnacle of my change. Even though I wasn't looking to get out of the culture, I loved so much of it. Yes, it was a little restricting and limiting, but I loved the family atmosphere. I was number 6 of 8 children. Many games, we'd sing together, we would do so much together, and I had many nieces and nephews. I think I was like 32, 35 nieces and nephews at that point when I my life connected with Heart Connection Ministries breakthrough. And so in that breakthrough session, I had to make a decision. Was I going to continue to stay in the culture of all my years and all my generations for hundreds of years ahead of me, or was I going to follow my heart to where I felt I was being led? And so I did. I followed what I felt was my heart. And if you remember, I talked about the bigger the risk, the greater the disappointment. And I think I had an expectation that people on the other side of the river, so to speak, or the other side of my crossover, were going to be less prone to having faults. I don't know where I would have got that idea. And I thought maybe I would be less prone to having faults. And I discovered that, you know, I am sort of faulted, frail, and foolish, and the people I met were sort of faulted, frail, and foolish. And so I had disappointments. I understood that my family of origin was unable to understand how I could make such a drastic change in my life. Because if one of my siblings had done what I did, I would have felt just like they did. You're bad, you're wrong, we want to stop you, don't do this. But because I had a new awareness, a new understanding, and a new direction on the inside of my heart, I no longer could stay. There's something that compelled me to go. And in that going, I had expectations. And sometimes when we have misguided expectations, we get disappointments. And I took big risks. And so I had to discover that, a lot of things I tried didn't work. But I'm so grateful for people that came into my life sometimes when I felt like I was down and out. And how can I get through this point? This is a changing time. I don't understand it. Maybe a little bit how the world is today. Who ever expected a pandemic, a world pandemic in 2020? I know not many people did. And it affected everyone, some more negatively and others perhaps even positively. So everybody got a different reaction, but we all discovered some things that didn't work anymore, and we had to learn how to do it differently.
How did you decide that how you were brought up wasn't working for you anymore? That's a huge shift.
It wasn't working anymore. That's how it happened. It worked for me until it didn't. And I'm not different in all other people. It doesn't matter if we start a new business. Are we a newly married couple? Are we a newly parent? Are we moving to a new location? We all find things that work and that don't work. And sometimes we have to relocate again because a place didn't work, or we try something in business and it doesn't work and we have to try it again. But sometimes it works for a while. And that's how my life was. It worked for me for a while, but I actually, at the age of 28, I became a midwife. I've been a school teacher in the culture that I was raised for 7 years. I love the kids. I love teaching. I like pretty much everything about my teaching career, but somehow it seemed like a shift was coming. So I became a midwife, and I nurtured mamas and new babies while the babies are being born. And I think the weight and the weight and the responsibility turned into an oppressive thing for me. And on top of that, I had a broken heart. I didn't know I did. But that weight brought me to a place of, I could hardly fake it anymore, that it wasn't working. And I know Dr. Paul has taught us a lot about wearing masks. We all wear these masks that we want people to think who we are and how good we've got it put together. And we don't want to admit that we are faulted or that we are struggling. And I think I came to the place where I couldn't fake it anymore. And there was a family that we had a connection with in the past, and then they came back into my life during that very just difficult time, even though I didn't know how much I was struggling. But they saw my pain, and they suggested that I would do the breakthrough, the Heart Connection Ministry seminar. And at first, my response was, well, I'm this good girl. I haven't done anything wrong. I think I'm okay. I've got this. But I had to go through another season of a few more knocks, and it truly couldn't fake it anymore. I was doing a lot of crying, and it wasn't working, but my crying privately, so nobody would know. I had an encounter with the Lord that I didn't know was possible, and I just put all my trust in Him instead of trusting my family, trusting the culture, trusting the community. And that was the big defining moment. And there's some more intense workshops that we did that just reached right to my heart, right exactly what I needed. And I went home from that program, and I knew things that I had to do. Because also in the end of the day, I was talking to one of the classmates or one of the other trainees, and I said, I've never told an adult this story, and not thinking anything about it. And when I verbalized what I remembered that I'd never told before, this lady said, I was raped when I was 5 years old too. And I dropped like a sack of potatoes. I just went unconscious. Like, it was so profound, because I'd never put language to it. I thought we were a good family, and I didn't realize that what had happened, because I put a lid on it, and that was part of my faking. You know, I learned how to fake life so much and had a broken heart at the same time. And so I was in a safe place and a wonderful place to be supported. And a wonderful lady came and helped me kind of get back on my feet again. And that was my defining moment. Also in that time of sort of being unconscious for a little bit, whatever, it was a state of bliss. It got still in there instead of all the turmoil in my head. And I knew two things. I needed to confront the person who did that to me. And I also knew that I would be leaving the culture.
What has your process been like since the seminar?
That was part of the process. It put me in a huge movement of feeling that movement in my life rather than feeling stuck. And when I say that, it was for me literally both externally and internally. And I experienced something that was amazing of movement. I never wanted to lose that. I always want to stay responsive and not become a fake again. And believe me, life shows up and you get those disappointments and the things that you don't think would ever happen, things you don't expect. You get unexpected disappointments at times. And I think that's been my biggest battle, is to stay true to myself, to say, this is who I am, this is who I'm not, and be really clear. And you know, I took on the idea that I was a free, confident, and worthy person, and that this was who I was going to live and be. And so I can't get into another lane and become someone else if this is who I am. So I think one of the things that I take away and I carry with me, of course, I have lots of stories. And after that break from my family, which was very hard and very intense to do, but when I made the decision, I couldn't go back anymore. And if I could impart that to my listeners, is when you acknowledge that something's not working and you want to make a change, you have to decide. You have to make a decision. And once that decision is made, you can't go back. And then you make a plan knowing it's not all going to work out. It's not going to be a cakewalk every step of the way. But when we don't quit, when we find ways to navigate through those adverse winds and make them work for us rather than fighting them or regressing and going back to who we're not. Because once we take on that new role, sometimes there's times I felt so uncomfortable in a new culture, in a new environment, missing my family from the past tremendously. I still cried buckets of tears because I missed my family. I wanted to be with them. And there just becomes such a divide because of the difference of the culture and the understanding, that as I pressed forward, there were times I thought, you know, couldn't I just relax a little bit and maybe relax a little and go back? And I would look over my shoulder and it'd be like, oh no, you know, I can't go back. There's nothing back there. I want to meet people in the new Marian and not me have to regress. And I don't know if that makes sense for anyone or not, that there is a movement. When you feel that movement of life moving forward, you're growing on the inside and becoming more solid and stable. I read a quote when I was early into my separation from the family, and it's about being so solid and stable that nothing in the world shakes you. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing, because it seemed like everything could shake me and sent me into tears, or, you know, it's just still so broken and my heart hurt so much. But with time, because I wouldn't quit, because I kept on navigating through, and this is where each one of us has to make that choice. What do we decide? What is the plan? And then it's not all going to work out, but we don't quit. because there will be the breakthroughs. There will be the forward moving. And so I've got to travel to Israel. I've traveled to the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Switzerland. I got to take a 6-hour hike in the beautiful Swiss Alps that still I could smile about for hours when I just bask in how wonderful that was. And more than that, build relationships and met so many wonderful people. And my relationship with God has grown and strengthened. And I feel like there's still things ahead of me for me to discover what will be for me for my future.
So Marian, like, man, what a story, and like what a new life you've made for yourself. And out of that, you came up with a book. So, and you have some really interesting points about that. You want to tell us a little bit about your book and some of the points you make there that might help our listeners?
Well, yes, I have referred to them, but I will also remind the people that, when you make a change, you have to make that decision. Excuse me. You make a decision. And when you make that decision, it's not all going to work out. And that's what I discovered when I looked over my life and had a coach that helped me flesh this out, is that I followed a formula that I didn't know I did. But the formula is a 5-step program, and you can actually get to it on my website or my landing page of everythingyouTry.com/breakfree. And you can download those 5 steps. Number 1 is you identify the trap. Number 2 is you make the decision. Number 3 is you make a plan. Number 4, it won't all work out. And number 5, you persevere to the payoff. And when you clear on who you are and who you're not, it's almost equally important to know that you're also not this other whatever. Maybe it's a familiar pattern of the past, or maybe it's something new that is tempting you to take you down a path that is not who you are. So we sort of have to get into a lane and stay in that lane. That's the right path for us. And from time to time, we need to evaluate again and say, is this who I am, or do I need to readjust again? But if you know who you are and who you're not, what are you willing to put up with? You're not willing to put up with. And what gives you the right to say or be that?
So you're, as well as an author, you're a life coach. So like, what places do you see people getting stuck in all of the things you mentioned? Where do people get stuck the most?
I think people get stuck in the comfort zone of what has now become normal. Because when you live life, just like in the community I was raised, was normal. It was normal for me to ride my bicycle to school and go into a classroom with 1 through 8th grades with no electricity or indoor plumbing. It was normal for me to take that run down the hill to the outhouse and sit on a snowy, cold seat in the morning. Never thought anything of it. Never thought, I wish I wouldn't have to do that. It was normal for me. Didn't bother me. And we always ran. I don't know why. Never walked down that hill, just always ran. So I actually did run to the outhouse. It was normal for me. It's just how I've always done things. And I think we get caught in that, whether we're doing business or how we do life and family, how we talk to our children, how we relate to our spouses, how we interact in our communities, how we interact in our nation. I think it shows up everywhere. And when we're comfortable with a behavior that now has become negative, it's recognizing this is not working. This is not who I am. This is not who I want to be or show up in the world. This is not my legacy that I want to leave behind. When you become aware of it, and I think this is also a breakthrough quote that says, without acknowledging, you will have no breakthroughs. Have to acknowledge something's not working. And if you remember my story, it was hard for me to get that first aha in that, because I was a good girl. I had never partied. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. In my mind, I hadn't done anything wrong. I was this good Dutch little girl running around the country and trying to do my best, not having any evil intent. But man, did I need help.
I think one of the things that sometimes people struggle with is they realize something's not working. So they make a change and they start heading down a path. And it's like, oh, wait, this isn't working either. Do I persevere until it works? Or do I cut my losses and turn around? Because a lot of times it's like, maybe I'm not trying hard enough. But sometimes it's time to give up. How do you know when the difference is?
Well, I'll speak from my own experience in that again. And I know I did that a lot. And I know it's also this for other people too, that what you described is very real. And always it was somebody that came into my life that helped me navigate through something where I really got spun in a tight corner in that. Because it did happen for me multiple times. And I got caught in it way harder than I thought I would. After my first breakthrough free, I thought, this is it. I kind of got this. I know I'm having to grow. And I never thought I'd get spun in a corner again. And it is partly still who you determine that you are, that you have to stay loyal to and know what you're going to put up with and what you're not going to put up with. And so that at the end of your life, you can say, I'm glad I did and not I wish I had. I think regret comes also from doing things we wish we hadn't, but it also comes from not doing things that we wish we had. So it has, for me, always been a people or an organization that came into my life and gave me what I needed because I had a searching heart, a seeking heart, and a responsive heart so that when I was given something, usually I would respond to it. So I think staying responsive so we don't become so walled off again that we can't learn from someone or recognize that, hey, this is now being helped for me rather than putting up a wall and not letting anything come in anymore because sometimes we wall off so hard that we can't feel anymore because it hurts. So we wall off. But that's not good. I've tried it and it's not good. I remember there's a moment it hurt so badly in my new life that I told God, I said, God, I don't want to hurt this much anymore. And I really regretted it some years later that I did that because it's almost like my heart started shutting down. So even though I had felt so deeply, I was now putting up walls and barriers. So I would say, reach out for help when you feel like you get spun in a corner or your feet are sticky and you can't navigate the way you want to, or your heart gets just so distraught, maybe hurt, and it wants to shut down. There are people who can help you. And if you have a seeking heart, I've discovered that help has always come. But it causes me to make an adjustment within myself every time.
Isn't that one of the hardest things that I experience? Like, it's the whole thing of, how are you? I'm good. But it's those occasional people that can see our eyes or notice something else about us that says, really, what's going on or what's happening with you? And like finding those people are key to like what you're talking about, not getting spun out or not helping someone find a better way. Do you see any of that in the things you deal with?
Yeah, pretty much everyone. It doesn't matter if you have, like, you look at your hand and you got 4 fingers that are going well, but your thumb is painful. It pains the whole hand. So a lot of people, they've got 1 or 2 or 3 things going well in their life, but maybe 1 or 2 that they need help. Some people don't have much going. They need a lot of restoration. And I always say resurrection is possible at any level. You plant a seed, it can come up at any time. So seeds can be planted and new life and new growth can come again. But we want to avoid those big do-overs if we can, the total crashes. But even those are not without loss. They're not, cause. You can still recover from that. And I think, being aware of the one or two things that are not working is always, and so in my coaching practice, I usually find, people struggle the hardest perhaps in one area and maybe in two areas. And we sort of focus on, what is holding them back from feeling that movement. And it's so rewarding to me. And it happened to me today. I've been working with this lady for 4 months. This is her 4th month. And today she laughed about a third of the time. And when we first started out, she laughed. It was the laugh of, I'm covering, I'm hiding. And people will do that. They'll laugh, but it's a laugh. They're hiding behind the laugh. And this time it was different. And there's almost nothing that can, for the people experiencing it, but also for the person that is walking alongside. And I know there's people that got to see that with me too.
Well, the other thing I'd say is, like, sometimes we just need a resource, maybe even other than someone like a life coach, or Don was a counselor. So people that are skilled in helping us figure those out, if we don't have like a person in our life that can help do that, it's really valuable to seek those resources out.
My resources came in a variety of ways. One time it was like a business coaching school. One time it was through a church organization. One time it was through Breakthrough. One time it's through, the young man that invited me to Breakthrough. So, it came in a variety. I also did 3 years of the school ministry. And I know that was something that was a defining moment for me to know that was right for me. And when you know it's right for you, that is a really cool place to push through the obstacles that have always showed up for me. Maybe they don't for others, but it seems like I get to experience it. And that's therefore why my book is called Pretty Much Everything You Try Doesn't Work.
So is as we're kind of closing our time, is there anything first of all, if you could repeat again ways for people to connect with you, and then if there's just a couple things you want to leave our audience with as we start to close about what you've said, please go ahead and share those.
Sure, and thank you. Well, I can be reached at everythingyouTry.com. It's my website, and everythingyouTry.com. It's also my name, Mcspadden.com. And you can buy my book, or you can go to Amazon to buy my book, or you can book a call with me, and we can chat about what's going on in your life and what you want, why you want it, and help you sort through some things. Also, I have a landing page, and you can get my 5 steps to break free, which is, again, everythingyouTry.com/break free. And you can connect with me on that page as well and get 5 steps to breaking free. So what I would say, in the midst of changing seasons, in the midst of a divided nation, in the midst of all the difficulties and disappointments that 2020 may have brought for you, and going into 2021, maybe full of surprise, find your peace. And when I say peace, I'm talking about PACE, your rest in your space, in the place that you are in life, and know that it wasn't ever intended for anyone to feel like they're backed in the corner and they don't have a way out. There's always a way out, whether it's in one part of your life or 3 or 4 areas of your life. And I shouldn't say always, but in our heart, we can choose. And for me, I was able to leave a restrictive culture that no longer worked for me, because I didn't have children, I didn't have a husband. So I was sort of like free to make that choice, which was also difficult because I had to make it on my own, by myself. I didn't have anybody to go with me. So it took a lot of courage, but it always does. It takes courage. So I would say you have it within yourself, and fix your eyes on a goal and find the help that you need, and leave the world the way that you will feel honored and blessed in the last week of your life.
Thank you, Marian, so much. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Marian.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fitz Rock Podcast. The music you are hearing is Swim with Wild Musical Instruments by Your My Muse. Copyright 2019 and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License. Until next time, have a fantastic life.